From the NewsChannel 5 network, this is Inside Politics, sponsored by United Health Group.
Hello everyone, I'm NewsChannel 5's political analyst Pat Nolan. Welcome to Inside Politics. Our guest today is Nashville Mayor Megan Barry. She recently gave her second State of Metro address since taking office here in Nashville in 2015. She also scored a bit of a victory in the legislature recently, helping pass legislation to move ahead on addressing our city's and our region's long-term mass transit needs. Mayor's always happy to have you back on the show.
Pat, thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
So you would like to see the city move ahead on a multi-pronged light rail system, and You're ready to break ground.
We are, absolutely. Obviously, there's some planning that has to happen before we get there, but Gallatin Pike is the vision, but the studies have shown that all of our major pikes are great places for this to happen. And
this is like a 25-year plan, right?
Yes, it is. But, you know, all of this has to be happening now. We're not going to be able to break ground on everything simultaneously, but we have to start somewhere. What's
the process for when you actually will get to breaking ground? You need to go to the council. Is there other funding mechanisms? Obviously, you need to get the referendum.
Well, that's the first step. We have to, I mean, Gallatin Road, we're moving on, but we actually have to have the referendum, and voters need to understand exactly what the revenue streams need to be and what the plan is, and that's our plan, to get that to the voters.
Are you going out to the community to do that right now?
We will begin that. We want to have a ballot initiative in 2018, so there's work to do, but we want voters to be absolutely informed.
You mentioned density reasons and other studies that indicate that Gallatin Road is the best first leg of this project to do. But I also wondered if that portion of Gallatin Road wasn't also, and Main Street wasn't part of with the largest amount of support for the ill-fated AMP project.
Well, there was definitely a community that wanted to see some kind of transit along that corridor, but you've also seen a lot of transit-oriented development coming along that pike, density, and neighborhoods that have sidewalk networks that will support it as well.
Okay, let me ask you a series of questions, sort of walking through the process. You're going to first go out in the community, start explaining to people what the plan is and kind of how we're going to get how the funding would come and kind of what the process is going to be. What is the process first to start those programs across town, and then when do you wind up going to the council?
So, well, at the moment, the plan is about getting voter support and to get our community excited about this. You know, we've done a lot of studies, a lot of work over the last several years. We've got different plans in motion moving forward. All of these have to now be communicated in a consolidated way so that voters understand that there's a comprehensive network of transit.
Now, is it possible that you'll do this during one of the 3 scheduled elections for 2018, or are you looking at perhaps a petition drive that would in turn have one in a special election?
Well, we're looking at it being on the ballot of an already scheduled election.
November? So, August?
We're looking at
May?
what the...
There are 3 next year.
Yes, there are, and so we have 3 opportunities. I think it will depend on where we are in the process of helping voters understand so that we can have a positive impact.
When you go out to the voters and then you go to the council, is it your idea that this referendum would be to raise the sales tax or some other tax?
Well, what will be on the referendum is a kind of a menu of choices as far as revenue streams, and thankfully the state legislature just gave us the opportunity to take this to the voters, which I'm very grateful to Governor Haslam and the Improve Act and all the Davidson County delegation that made this happen.
So when you go to the council, there'll be a selection of sales tax or whatever tax it's going to be. There won't be a smorgasbord on the ballot to go in and vote for which tax you vote for.
No. What will be on the ballot is actually spelled out and what those revenue streams will look like so that voters will have an opportunity to vote on it.
Now, back when you were running for mayor in 2015, you were pretty clear that you thought maybe the sales tax was the way to go. We didn't know this process would be approved by the state, but you were looking at doing that even with the remaining capacity we had in sales tax. Is that still where you're kind of leaning about this?
The good news is that the state legislature gave us some options. So what part of this process is going to be over the next several months is to help voters understand what those pieces are and to hear from the community where they think the support will be. So
you're still amenable if the public has a different idea about what tax ought to be raised, that you'd be more likely to go with that than perhaps the sales tax?
Well, I think where we identify these revenue streams will be really important, but having that input from the community is going to be critical.
Now, you're a progressive in your politics. Most progressives have not been crazy about sales tax. They think it's progressive, it takes too much money, too much of a burden on lower income and middle income people. Is that something that weighs on your mind as you decide which one of these options you want to pursue?
Sure. I mean, I think as we look at our options, it's always one of those those pieces where you have to choose where the best revenue stream is going to be and what the most impact is going to be. Unfortunately, in Tennessee, our ability to drive those revenue streams is more limited.
Now, as you move forward on the funding, is this referendum, is that, how much of that referendum, the money that's generated from that, whether it's sales tax or something else, what percentage of the project is that going to fund, and what do you still need additional monies to get? Well,
I think that those are the questions over the next several months that we'll be able to answer as we spell out specifically what the plan is, where all these lines are going to be specifically, and also what has to happen in order to make that.
Do you see a need perhaps for additional state monies to go back to them, much as they were being asked to look at some monies for the AMP project?
Oh, I think that we need federal dollars and state dollars.
Those federal dollars are still available? I mean, there's been everything you see in Washington talks about cutting back if you're not a defense, not
right.
related to national defense.
I think that's right. I mean, I think those federal dollars are definitely limited, but whatever is available at the federal level, we'd absolutely like to be in the running for those.
Since we were talking about Washington, you went to the Hermitage back in March when President Trump was here. Did you get a chance to greet him when he came to Nashville and talk to him?
I did not. His speech at the Hermitage was really one where he came in, he spoke to the folks who were in attendance, and then he made his way on out.
Yeah, with the passage of the IMPROVE Act, what road improvements will we see in Nashville, Davidson County that don't have anything to do with this referendum?
What I've been told is the one thing that we will see is 440. 440 is going to get repaved.
Well, I was going to ask you that question. When I drive around town, the main interstates are in wonderful shape, yes, particularly in the surrounding counties, but 440 is a war zone.
It is, and my understanding is that whatever technology they used to do that the first time was not a great technology, so it has to be done in a different way, that the repaving is more complicated, so that's where we're going.
Do you have any control or say-so about what projects are done in Davidson County? Do you get to pick some of them, or is this strictly done by TDOT?
Well, TDOT is the main arbiter of those projects, but we work really closely with TDOT. They're very willing to listen to what we need here in Davidson County and work closely with us.
There already appears to be some opposition perhaps to what your effort to do this referendum. There's an anti-tax group led by Ben Cunningham who lives in Sumner County. He wants to put a petition drive together to put a charter amendment on the ballot that would put a cap on the city's overall debt. This is the same group that has already put a cap on property taxes in Davidson, at least the property tax rate in Davidson County. If that happened, if that passed, wouldn't that put a big crimp, if not a stop, on what you're trying to do? Well,
I mean, I think that, while I appreciate that somebody from outside of our county wants to come in and tell Davidson County what to do, I think that voters will see through that.
Mayor Megan Barry is our guest on Inside Politics. We're talking about her recent State of Metro address and her plans to move forward on some kind of light rail or other system here for Davidson County and the region to deal with our mass transit issues. Back to continue our conversation after this break.